Morning, everybody. This is Grant from State of the Spark, and I am so pumped you're here. I am so excited you're here because I have one concept to drop on you today, and I'm going to drop it right now. You see, we've been trimming down the show a little bit to give you the meat, and I want to share with you this one particular concept that hit me last week as I was traveled to Western North Carolina. And this one concept hit me so hard between the eyes with a dilemma that I'm experiencing in my own personal, several dilemmas that I'm experiencing in my own personal life. And a dilemma is basically limited disempowering options between two separate, not great options. Have you ever had to make a decision and there's two options and neither of them are entirely appealing to you and you're looking for another option? I believe that it is on the other side of this one concept, and it is simply this. Here's the concept. Don't miss this. Hear me. You don't have to hate something in order to leave it behind. Hear that again. You don't have to hate something in order to leave it behind. Hear me on this. You don't have to hate something in order to leave it behind. Now, on the other side of this, that doesn't mean that if you love something, you have to stick with it. Hear that again. To love something doesn't mean you have to stick with it. Think about that for a second. Hang on, let's go over here to chat. So this concept hit me so hard in four major areas, in whether it's your fitness and health, whether it's your relationships, whether it's work you enjoy, whether it's your spirituality. Too often, Nate Waters, good morning. How are you doing? Good morning. Good to see you, man. So the principle today is simply this. In order to leave something, you don't have to hate it. I remember as I was deconstructing my faith and leaving the church, I started to develop and nurture even this bitterness and this lack of rationale and this lack of logic. And it took me years. I spent years in that. And as I developed and matured, I started realizing I don't want to carry around any bitterness or hate for anything. And so I started deconstructing even my bitterness and hate and dislike of the church. And I started telling myself things I liked about the church, things I missed about the church. I missed the fellowship. I missed the community. I missed the worship and the pursuit of ecstasis, what the Greeks called ecstasis, and connecting with God through ecstasy, if you will, or ecstatic traditions, whether it was, worship or whatever it was. I missed that. It took me this whole story arc of developing bitterness and anger and upset, and then having to work through all of that and start going, well, what do I miss? Because I don't want to walk around in bitterness. Now, as I was thinking about stuff like this last weekend, I encounter and talk to everyone. I ask them their goals. And oftentimes they tell me their goals, but they tell me what they're pursuing, and they often juxtapose that with something they dislike. Let's say that they're pursuing better health and fitness and trying to get trim and fit like I am right now. Quite often, they start to talk about how much they disliked themselves before. Now, if you think about also relationships, oftentimes when someone is considering leaving a spouse or a partner, they often throw mud or dislike or hate at their current spouse or their current partner or their ex. And then you think about when people are trying to leave their job or pursue some entrepreneurial venture or pursue a better job, they often start crap talking, shit talking, mudslinging their current boss, their current clients. If they're thinking about closing their company, they start to throw mud at their current business and they start to communicate what they dislike. Now, I get it. We're all programmed for deviation set norms. What this simply means is that you have an amygdala in your brain that kind of acts like, or a hypothalamus that kind of acts like a thermometer in your brain, and it tries to keep stasis. And when something no longer, what's up, Diggs? Hey, what's up, G? What's up, Diggs? How you doing, man? Thanks for stopping by. Nate Waters says this real quick. I want to see this. I remember you going through all that. I prayed and fasted for you a while, and God assured me I need to walk away as he is walking with you. I'm very proud of you and how far you've come, my friend. Thank you, Nate. I really appreciate that. That means a lot, man. And coming out on the other side doesn't necessarily mean you have to go back to it. So the principle today is simply this. You don't have to hate something in order to leave it. You really need to focus on growth, and that's the real principle. But a lot of you are carrying around a lot of bitterness, anger, hate, whatever it might be, in order to build up the momentum and the courage to look at something and say, it just no longer suits me. We don't have to be demeaning and say, well, that's good for you, but I've matured beyond that. No, you could simply say, I'm growing another direction. Now, the scary part is this. What if there is something you love? What if there is something you're passionate about and you don't want to lose that thing? So there's these dilemmas that come up. I currently have a thing that's either not respecting me or not encouraging me to grow or holding me back in some way. And I want to grow beyond, but my options are sticking with this and becoming a mediocre version of myself or hating this thing and trash talking it until it either rejects me. This is something that I think a lot of people do. They carry the bitterness and the hate because they're not bold enough and brave enough to take action for the thing they actually want. They're not bold enough and strong enough and clear enough to navigate the tricky waters of communication in order to communicate, listen, I love you, I love this thing, but here's my dilemma and I'm trying to go this direction. Can we do this together? They don't have what's called third option ethics. Third option ethics is basically saying I refuse to accept simplistic dichotomies. It's got to be black or white. It's got to be yes or no. I've got to be a mediocre version of myself, or I've got to hate this one thing I'm trying to grow beyond. I think the better option is this. I think the better option is to get radically clear on who you're trying to become in that area. Now, my framework for this is the TLE, the total life experience: fitness and health, healthy, happy relationships, work you enjoy, and spirituality. So I want to give you 3 quick examples. Number 1, your fitness and health. A lot of people feel like they have to create a story in their fitness and health that they hated the person they were. Now, quite often that might also be true. But if you hate it, it's sort of rejecting you, and you kind of have this underdog, painful, disempowered approach to the new you. You don't want to bring that baggage into the new you. You want the new you to feel radically empowered. And so you actually want to shape a very clear vision of a fit, healthy, abundant you, and then look back at the old you and go, I loved my sense of humor. I loved my personality. My fitness and health wasn't where it needed to be, and I wanted more. That's an empowering way versus I was always depressed and I hated myself and I hated my clothes. Those things might be factual, but you don't need to put fuel on that fire in order to be bold to take action for what's next. The truth is, we often need someone to push us. The truth is that we're often afraid and scared, and we'd rather be rejected out of a thing and be forced to go, well, I guess they rejected me, so moving on to something new. So the framework is the TLE, fitness and health, healthy, happy relationships. Now, relationships are the toughest one, whether it's friendships that no longer serve you. Sometimes we have to set them up to say, like, they didn't grow with me. They didn't stick with me. They didn't stay my friends. They didn't keep up. And we start trash talking them, as opposed to, hey, I just had to make some serious changes for the goal I was trying to pursue. You're welcome to still come along. You're welcome to still be a part. That's this, instead of this dichotomy, that's the third option, opting for growth. Here's the vision of who I'm trying to be. Do you want to be a part still? Here's the vision of who I'm trying to become with your friends. Now, with your spouses, it's even more difficult. You might have made lifelong commitments to your partners and spouses. You might have made something in your brain that says, if I love this person, they and I, she and I, he and I have to stay side by side for the rest of my living existence. That's not necessarily true. If you love someone, you've heard this phrase, you might love someone enough to let them go. That might be true, but really love yourself enough and how you're growing to then turn to them and say, hey, listen, when we came together, I was this person. Now I'm trying to be this person. Are you along for that ride? And you give that person a chance to process that. Now, chances are, for love and intimacy and friends, these are very touchy subjects. And most people, because of this rejection, because of this negativity bias, nearly everyone focuses on negativity in order to bounce off of that to their new self. They might also be feeling they want to grow. They might also be feeling they want to make a change. And when you bring up this dilemma, they might see it through that lens, meaning they might not react well. They might not take that on with strength and dignity. They might bounce off of you and start creating a negative narrative on you. And this is the toughest one. In the TLE, there's fitness and health, healthy, happy relationships, work I enjoy, and spirituality. If you need to make these changes, you could say, well, I guess I'll just close my mouth. I'll just serve them and be quiet and create a smaller version of myself to fit into their world. And then you develop this victim mind. Or you could start saying, this person doesn't do this, that, and the other for me, and they no longer fit me. And you start creating tensions, and what you're really hoping for is that they reject you, and you go, well, they left me. Oh, well, they left me. And now I had to become something else. These are all disempowering narratives. Instead, you need to go to these people, and you say, hey, this is who I'm trying to be. I love you. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to be side by side. This is not a rejection of you. In fact, this might even be a temporary state of independence for you to explore a little bit, for you to get some things out of your system. And that might be healthy for you both because you're not burning a bridge. Too often people feel like they have to burn a bridge. Nate Waters says, God has now spoken to me in many dreams that I need to let go of all the things done and stolen from me and my family and my dad after his death. Our time here is nearing the end. It's really hard to forget wrong and evil and trust God. And Nate's getting to a great point. Quite often in the faith, and for those of you who don't know, I had a very long history in the Christian church. Most of my Christian friends probably don't think I'm necessarily Christian now, but I love following the teachings of Christ as well as others. But one of the teachings that we get from the Bible is, the idea of good and evil. And we forget that the tree in the garden that they were not supposed to eat from was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Meaning they weren't supposed to operate in binaries. They weren't supposed to operate in good and evil. This is right, this is wrong. They were supposed to operate in trusting God, as I think Nate is getting at here. And too often we corner ourselves in these false dichotomies that say it has to be one or the other. And I am encouraging you to act in love and what love does. Love does not establish hate. In fact, if you hate something, chances are you hate it on the back of the fact that you loved it. If you start throwing mud at an ex, or you start trash talking an old employer or an old boss or an old job or an old business or an old set of clients, chances are you started that relationship very well. And in the TLE, I've touched on fitness and health, healthy, happy relationships, and a little bit on work. To go into a new job, to take a leap for a new employment, to start a new entrepreneurial venture, we often feel like we have to shit talk the old thing, as opposed to I had a new vision for what I wanted in life. One is very disempowering. The other's radically empowering. And on the spiritual side, you heard me tell my story above about the Christian church. It wasn't until I stopped nurturing my bitterness. It wasn't until I stopped nurturing my bitterness that I was able to start seeing what I loved about it and reintroduce the things I loved about it in my new life. Hear that. It's not until you let go of the bitterness, the hate, the false dichotomies that you can actually focus on a new vision of who you want to be, to bring that in and make that the soil on which you're nurturing this new thing. So in spirituality, it wasn't until I was able to look back at my Christian experience and say, well, I really love the worship. I really love the community. I really love the fellowship. I really love doing things together. How can I reintroduce that into my life now without going backwards? The big one that's obvious for a lot of people is divorce. You see a lot of people going through divorces or separations, and it quite often has to be one or the other, where they're together forever. And if you talk to a lot of the men and the women, they're leading what Emerson called quiet lives of silent desperation, or lives of quiet desperation, where they want more, but they're both holding back for some reason. Or alternatively, they've been divorced and set free from this old ball and chain. And this loop is so unhealthy. What if you could high five your partner? What if you could love each other and say, I love you. I think we're going to spend this next season learning stuff about each other in an independent way. And what does that mean? What are the rules? I don't know. Navigate it. Navigate the rules. But don't set up false dichotomies if you don't have to. If the more empowering narrative is to say, this is who I'm becoming, I need some time to become this thing. And they need to look at you and say, me too. Not just divorce, not just in church, not just in fitness and health, in every area. I encourage you this week to look where you're setting up false narratives of bitterness, hate, anger, when you're wasting energy with that. And instead, you could be bringing your best. Start with gratitude. I'll tell you one thing. We skipped morning cup of gratitude. I'll tell you something I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for the friends in my life right now. I had a friend text me this weekend and they said, hey, do you ever feel like you're holding back? I posted this on Instagram. Do you ever feel like you're holding back? I get the sense you're holding back sometimes. And that hit me deeply. That touched me deeply. It wasn't until I started letting go of old friends and made room for new friends. I didn't burn bridges with my old friends, but I made room for new friends. And this new friend came into my life and she said, I think I feel like I get the sense you're holding back quite often. Get friends in your life who come to you and say, are you holding back? Because I think there's more in the tank. Get you friends like that. Those friends will propel you to the next level. So I simply logged on today to give you this one nugget, and it's just this. You don't have to hate something in order to grow beyond it. Again, that's you don't have to hate something in order to grow beyond it. And the other side of this is just because you love something doesn't mean you have to stick side by side with it the rest of your life. Just because you love something doesn't mean you have to stick side by side with it the rest of your life. You can love it from a distance and therefore come back together later. You can love it from a distance and come back together later. Real quick, Nate says Christianity isn't religion and Christ is not religious nor Christian. He's godly and is God. The religious killed Christ and Christ still died for them. Great point. Great point this morning, Nate. Thanks for stopping by. So why am I talking about all of this? Because at State of the Spark, we believe in igniting lives of explosive significance, and we believe you should be igniting lives of explosive significance. And in this last week, I was super touched that so many people are wasting time and energy, a lot of time and energy, burning bridges they don't need to burn, setting up hate and bitterness that they don't need to set up in order to fling them into this next future. And often they're being forced into it, and it's disempowering. Instead, I want to see these people operating in a high degree of integrity, a high degree of empowerment, simply by owning the vision of who they want to be. And it's harder. It's harder to communicate these things. It's trickier. And I'm telling you, most people are not ready for you to come to them in a healthy way and say, I think this is the direction I'm going. I still want you in my life, but I don't know what the new rules are. Can we come up with the new rules? Chances are they'll reject it. Chances are they'll walk away from it. Chances are they themselves will throw stones. But that's not you. You don't have to throw stones. You can simply declare who you are and own the consequences of inviting people to stay on the journey or not and love them regardless. You can still hold on to a heart of love as you move forward into your next thing. Why am I talking about this? Because we believe in igniting lives of explosive significance, and I believe you should start with your own. Have a great day.